Hello and welcome to the Make More Placements podcast. This episode is called Why Contingency Recruiting is Rigged Against You and What to Do Instead. Again, just to remind you, this podcast is brought to you by Placement Box. Placement Box is the CRM and automation tool designed specifically for recruitment and search business owners. So if you're watching this live on LinkedIn, Facebook, YouTube, remember to drop a comment. Let us know where you're tuning in from. And if you've ever worked on a role for weeks, I need to lose it out to a competitor or a hiring manager change their mind. Give us a like in the chat as well. If you're watching live on LinkedIn, Facebook, or YouTube, remember to drop a comment. Let us know where you're tuning in from. And if you ever worked on a role for weeks, I need to lose out to a competitor or a hiring manager that's changed their mind. This episode for you, and give us a like in the comments as well. Today we're going to break down a few things. We're going to be looking at why contingency recruiting keeps you stuck. We're going to be looking at how to transition from contingency to exclusive or retained work, and how the one mistake recruiters make that when trying to win retainers. We're going to also be looking at how to position yourself as a go-to recruiter before clients even start hiring. So if you want to spend less time chasing and more time placing, stick around. Let's get into it. So Terry, I want to sort of put the question to you first. I mean, obviously, as a company, but you especially, you speak to recruiters all over the world, most English-speaking countries. What are some of the biggest complaints you hear about the contingency model in general? What are some of the big challenges you have there?
Biggest complaints. Before I even start this, Drew, let me ask you a question. How long have we got? Because just the complaints alone, we could be here for a couple of hours. Seriously, the main ones is I think the big one is here's some facts. Let's do it another way. For a contingent recruiter, the average contingent recruiter will fill anything between 10 and 40% of the roles they're working on. Let's say they're exceptional and they know their numbers, and they know how many job orders they work on per month and how many job orders they actually fill. By the way, a large percentage of recruiters don't know that number, but let's say that they do, and they're filling 50%. It does mean that 50% of the time they're working, they're not getting paid. Let me just repeat that. If you're working on contingent, most of the time you're working, you're not getting paid. Just let that sink in for a minute. You're working on 5, 10 jobs, or you've got a team working on 20, 30 jobs, but most of the job orders you're working on, you're not going to fill. So you're working and you're not going to get paid. Then you've got the frustration. If I had a pound or a dollar for every time a recruitment business owner says something like this to me, we would have had a great year last year if only these deals hadn't fallen through. We got to final stage, or and then they get the phone call from the hiring manager. Oh, we're putting this role on hold now, or this CV or resume has just come across our desk, and this candidate has just come across our desk looks really good. We're going in a different direction now, but I want to thank you for your time. And by the way, you often don't even get that. Thank you for the time. Just like, we're going in a different direction now. We're not going to pursue this role. Someone else is just beating you to the race and come forward with a perfect candidate, despite the fact that you, as a contingent recruiter, have been looking for this candidate for the last 2 or 3 weeks, and you've interviewed and everything else. But I think the key thing, and it's often unspoken, it's demoralizing, and it's bad for your confidence. You can't keep knocking somebody and knocking the wind out of them and expect to get up again and again and again with no scars from it. And the amount of recruiters that say things like, to the effect of, if I'm honest with you, Terry, I'm absolutely pissed off with this now. I've had enough. And I'm taking this problem home now to my family. And if I'm honest with you, my family have had enough. And I've had enough of this, I'm talking to my friends and colleagues saying the future looks good. We've got a ton of job orders. And in fact, most of them we don't fill. And the revenue that we were hoping to get, we haven't got. And it's happened again and again and again. And I'm not sure how much longer I can take this. And that, to me, is the biggest one. It's the unspoken one that many recruiters won't verbalise in public, but on a one-to-one, they share that with you.
Yeah, and I think for me, just to add to what you said there, I think for me, one of the most alarming things about it all is, like you said, even on a high end, you're looking at 50% fill rate, right? Whereas many recruiters, it's a lot lower than that. But let's take it on a high end. The roles that for the vast majority of contingency recruiters that I speak to, the roles that they're not filling, they're not filling it for no fault of their own. It's like they've done the work, they've put the hours in, they've done everything right, but the client side, the client's cancelled it, the client's changed their mind or had a change of heart, or clients hired someone internally. There's lots of different reasons why it happens, but most of the time it's not something like recruiter's done wrong, other than working with the client in the first place. But it's the client that's made the role impossible to fill, and I think that's probably the most concerning thing for me. I think as one of owning a business, challenges happen, and things aren't always going to go perfect. But for me, I'm a big believer in control, and I think a lot of the failure on contingency recruitment is outside of your control. It's things that you have no impact on, you have no say in. Terry, would you agree with
Yeah,
that?
100%, 100%.
So again, just sorry to cut in, but just on you talked about some of the frustration there, some of the more emotional side. If we look at the implications that this the contingency model has on a recruiter's business in terms of time and income, what are some of the things that you're noticing there?
Yeah, and it's you know, I don't know what the percentage is, but a large percentage of business owners have a family. And they say things like, what really gets to me, Terry, is that I've spent my time working on these job orders that I then don't get paid for. And I could have spent that time with my family and my loved ones. But I actually spent time working on job orders that I'm never ever going to get paid for. So in effect, it's a waste of time. And the thing with time, it's one of the few things that you can't replace. You can lose money, you can replace some friends, you can replace money, you can replace. But time, once it's gone, it's gone.
Yeah,
For most of us, if we're lucky, we're going to get what, 80 summers? Think about that for a minute. For most of us, if we're lucky, we're going to see 80 summers. But 40, 50, 60% of the time you're working, you're not getting paid. And that time's gone. And I feel we're saying this. Also want to say, if you're working on contingency and you're experiencing that problems, this isn't a case of beating you up about it. I think you've got enough problems already. Really, what we want to do is just highlight to you what's going on, and that most of the time you're working and you're not getting paid. So there's the time, it's gone. Once it's gone, it's gone. There's the yo-yo income. So we talk about this all the time for famine and feast. So one month, contingent recruiters, having caviar, steaks, and champagne, and next month it's bread and water because they've got no business coming in. And there's this famine and feast that goes on within the business. So income is what we call lumpy or inconsistent. And all these things could be avoided. So time and income, and I come back to what it does to your confidence as well. So time, income, and confidence and morale, and not just for the owner, but for the whole team as well.
Yeah, for sure. And I think just to finish on what you said there, Terry, I think that even if you're listening to this right now and you have a successful business, you're happy with your revenue, but you're still doing contingency. I think you could be doing you could be a solo recruiter who's turned over 1 million, right? But you're doing contingency and you only feel 50% of the job orders you work. You've generated 1 million, but you've done it for $2 million well, or £2 million worth of work, right? So again, it's still, when I look at it like that, it's still, even if you feel like you're doing well, you still could be doing much better. And for the work you're putting in, a lot of it's going unrewarded. Terry, would you agree with that?
100%. And if you've now got a team, and let's keep it modest. You've got a relatively small team. You've got 5 in your team. What you'll have is you have maybe 1 or 2 that will deliver and generate income, but you're going to have 1 or 2 people in your team, that team of 5, that don't make any placements that month. But just think about that for a minute. You've still got to pay them. They've still done the work. They've worked on 3, 4 job orders, but haven't made a placement. But you, as the business owner, still have to pay their salary and all the other costs involved with that consultant. And then you hear these horror stories. I know you've heard the same, where business owners say to me, "Yeah, it's got so bad now. We had 10 job orders last month, and through no fault of ours, they fell through, and things were tight anyway, and I had the wage bill to make and the tax and everything. So as a consequence, Terry, I ended up paying all the bills and paying my staff. But if I'm honest with you, Terry, half family went without, and what I would normally pay myself as a director, I wasn't able to this month." Think about that. Did you really set up your business in such a way that you would end up paying for your employees, but so your family would go without? It's soul destroying. It's absolutely soul destroying.
So, what's the, and again, this is one of the things I want to talk about today, what's the alternative, right? So if I'm a contingency recruiter resonating with everything you said there in terms of the pains, frustrations that I could be facing on a daily basis. What advice would you give? What's the alternative to contingency recruiting that I can do differently?
Well, there's two things one is going to consider. Nothing will change, by the way, unless you change. So you can look, we can all piss and moan about the market, and my market don't pay retainers or exclusive, whatever. But until you change, and at some level, make that decision. I've got to do things differently. So I think that's the first thing that you need to make that decision. But contingency is one model, and it'd be worth putting. We've gone to that, Joe. Just talk about why it happens, and I think one of the reasons it happens is anybody can call themselves a recruiter. All you need is a computer and a phone. You go, I'm a recruiter. And then all you have to do is reach out to hiring managers saying, you got any job orders? And some hiring managers will say, yeah, we're looking for a blah, blah, blah. If you know anybody, send them through.
Yeah.
From the rookie, not even the rookie recruiter, from the recruiter's point of view, they go, yeah, leave it with me. And here's what they do then is and Drew, as you know, I've got a friend who's a gambler. Their business is based on, it's almost like my friend who's a gambler. Their business is based on this. Sometimes this is going to work. It's a bit like a gambler. And this friend of mine, he has lost hundreds of thousands, which, by the way, he never ever talks about. And he's also won hundreds of thousands, and that's what he talks about. He talks about his wins.
Yeah.
But anybody knows anything about gambling or contingent recruiting, most of the time you don't win. But you enter into the market thinking, I could get lucky. For every 10 jobs I get, I could maybe fill 2 of them. And if the salary's at the right level, if you sit and think, well, over a year I may get, let's look at some numbers. I may get 50 job orders over the year. And in that time, I may fill 10 of them, let's say.
Yeah.
And the fees on these roles are let's 30,000. So the argument then is, well, I can generate 300,000 as a solo recruiter, and that's the argument they use. I will get lucky, and you will get lucky sometimes. But here's the thing: it's based on luck. Your success has got nothing to do with your skill. And if you're competing with another contingent recruiter and they got that job order before you, and they fill it before you, doesn't mean they're a better recruiter. It just means they got the job order before you. That's it. But then something just going on from there. So then recruiters think this is the only way. This is the only way I can do this. This is the only way I can generate, 2, 3. Look, I bet contingent recruiters that are doing 500,000. So it can be done. But some years they do 500,000. Another year they may do 120. But they think it's the only way. But there are other models that would mean that you would work less and earn more. So the most obvious one is the retain model. So rather than saying to the client hiring manager, I'll send you over some resumes or some CVs and I'll see how we get on with this, and you're saying that to 10 different organizations and keeping your fingers crossed that one of those deals, come in. You say to the hiring manager, let's put it the way, you communicate to the hiring manager how they would benefit from working with you on a retained basis or an exclusive basis. Now, but note that language. You've got to communicate the benefit to the hiring manager why they should do it.
Yeah.
I've got some news for you. You tell the hiring manager that you're pretty pissed with the way that things are going with contingent and you want some money up front and you want them to accommodate that. Probably isn't going to work. But seriously, if you can communicate the benefit to them in doing it, you can have a serious conversation. And clients that we work with, they're able to do that, and they're able to work with clients on an exclusive or retained basis. Does that make sense, Drew?
Yeah, it does. So again, just to explain for anyone who's completely new to this, exclusive and retained is very similar. Exclusive means you're the only recruiter working on that vacancy. So if you think about one of the big reasons why you're not filling the contingency roles you're working on right now is because they get filled by another recruiter, right? So exclusive means you're the only recruiter working on it. Retained means that you're the only recruiter working on it, and you've been paid up front. Terry, within Apex, within our programs, within the clients we help, we talk about exclusive with cancellation, right? So I want to make the definition right now, because I've seen in the industry people talking groups and stuff that real exclusive doesn't exist because even if the client agrees with you exclusively, they can always just tell you that and then go and work with someone else, or whatever. So you never really know. And that's one of the reasons why we encourage exclusive with cancellation. Can you, just for anyone who's completely alien to the concept, explain the difference between exclusive, in inverted commas, versus exclusive with cancellation?
Yeah, a couple of things. Let's go back to the number. Contingent, the average, yeah, depends who I talk to. Some recruiters will say we're only filling 5% of the roles we're working on. Some recruiters say we fill 50%, but very rarely they're filling most of the roles that they actually get. And very rarely do they actually know the numbers and measure it, first and foremost. However, the fill rate for exclusive is round about 80%. Let me repeat that. The fill rate for when you're working exclusive is now about 80%. Which, by the way, Drew, then contradicts his other argument that recruiters then say is, oh, Terry, I've got plenty of clients, but I can't find the candidates.
Yeah.
Think about that statement for a moment. First of all, you haven't got plenty of clients. A client's only a client if they've paid you an invoice, so it's not a client until they've paid you an invoice and no, the money's gone into your account. They're not actually a client. You've got some prospects who've given you some job orders. But here's the thing, just to counter that. And the question I always ask is, the roles that you get that you don't fill, and you say there's a shortage of candidates, do they get filled by anybody else? Well, yeah, sometimes another recruiter gets lucky. Well, I say sometimes, most of the time. Well, yeah, most of the time, another recruiter gets lucky. Well, did they get lucky? And is there a shortage of candidates? Or did they look somewhere else? Or did they get that job order before you? Because often that's the case. It's what's happened is another recruiter just got that job order before you, and that's why they filled it. And if the roles, by the way, are getting filled by somebody, there can't be a shortage of candidates.
Yeah.
If the roles never get filled, then you need to look at the job order and have a word with the hiring manager saying, you're asking for a candidate that doesn't actually exist. But as most of the roles actually get filled, there can't be a shortage of candidates, first and foremost. So we then acknowledge, well, actually, there isn't a shortage of candidates. There's a shortage of good quality clients who will work with an exclusive with cancellation. And what exclusive with cancellation is where that you agree to work with a client for a period, I don't know, 4 weeks, 6 weeks, 8 weeks. It depends on the role and the circumstances. But that's something that's mutually agreed between you and the hiring manager as to how long you'll work together exclusively on this role. And if they cancel, this is the hiring manager, if they cancel for any reason within that cancellation period, then they pay you a cancellation fee. And typically, the cancellation fee is a third of the final fee. Now, you may be thinking to the recruiter, why would the hiring manager do that? Well, again, which you haven't got time to go into now, but if you can communicate the benefit as to why they should do that, then they will.
Yeah.
You may also be thinking, well, hiring managers won't do that. You're right. Some hiring managers won't do that. But think about it. If they say, well, I'm not going to do that, I'm not going to work with you exclusively and then have to pay a cancellation fee if I cancel, I would say to you, you've probably dodged a bullet. Because if there's a concern from the hiring manager that they're going to have to pay you a cancellation fee, at some level, they're considering cancelling. They think there's a chance that's going to happen. But wouldn't you rather to know that now before you start working on that opportunity than halfway through the assignment when they say, oh, we're putting this job order on hold now? There was no commitment on their part. And all you're asking for is, can we have some commitment on this on your part, and I'll give you some commitment on my part.
And
There's
also,
nothing unreasonable in that request, is there, Drew?
Also, no, not at all. And also, it's unless they're thinking about cancelling, it's a no risk commitment, right? Because there's only going to be any financial pain for the client if they cancel, right? But they shouldn't be thinking about cancelling. And if they are, you shouldn't be working with them. But yeah, good points there. And I think again, just to add to that, and again, this doesn't just go for exclusive cancellation. And this is, I'm saying this for people who say like exclusivity doesn't really exist. Anything in there's no anything you have in your terms of business, right? Whether it's exclusive, whatever it is, there needs to be a consequence for breaking them, right? So if you're saying exclusivity, but there's no consequence for the client to break that, then yeah, you're right, it doesn't exist. What you need to have with any part of your terms is anything that we state as a as a condition, there needs to be a consequence for breaking it. Like, this is the payment deadline, here's the consequence for paying late. This is the exclusivity terms, here's the consequence for breaking that. If there's no consequence, then yeah, it may as well not exist. Terry, anything you'd add to that?
Yeah, it's a really good point. It's a bit like, if you I got a parking ticket the other day. I drove in a bus lane, which, by the way, in my defence, I didn't know it was a bus lane, but it is what it
You
is.
can't read it.
But I can't read, yeah. But seriously, there's a fine, because if there isn't the consequences for you breaking driving laws, such as driving. In fact, I parked in the parking lane to get some cash. But if there's no consequence in doing it, what happens is people are just going to do it. If there's no consequence in the client cancelling, the client's got, well, yeah, I agree to that. There's no consequences. then I'll agree to it. But it makes no difference if I break that agreement. So yeah, absolutely. There's got to be a consequence in doing that. And once you've then got this in place, what it means is then it's substantially, there's two main things here, three, I think. It boosts the morale of you and your team, because now your attitude is whatever happens, we're working exclusively on this role. Your fill rate's going to go up to about 80%. So rather than working on, I don't know, work on 10 jobs to fill two, now you're thinking, I'll just work on these two roles exclusively. Absolute worst case scenario, both clients cancel, I'm going to get a third of the fee. That's the absolute worst case scenario, isn't it?
Yeah.
So that has a massive impact then on your cash flow and your overall business stability. So now you're not working on 10 jobs thinking, you know, praying to the recruitment gods, please may two of these drop in. Please, the client doesn't pull the plug on these. It's not a gamble that you're not the roulette wheel hoping that you get your number and your colour and your number comes up.
Yeah.
Does that make sense,
100%.
Drew?
No, it does. It makes perfect sense. It makes perfect sense. One thing that I wanted to sort of bring up today on this, because obviously, like, I see just on online and on LinkedIn, Facebook, whatever, people complaining, making the complaints you're talking about today, Terry, about contingency. They want to make the shift from contingency to normally retained, or what we're saying today is exclusive retained or whatever. One of the, I guess, big concepts I think people miss when they do this. They tend to think, that I can just now go into my next sales meeting and start talking about exclusivity, or start talking about retained, and start winning business. And again, I'm not saying you can't do that, but one of the things that I think is important to grasp is the difference between a now buyer and a future buyer, and the difference when it comes to winning the business, when it comes to on an exclusive or retained basis. Can you just very quickly, because we're running out of time, first of all, explain the difference? What is a now buyer and what's a future buyer? And then two, why do we need to approach these differently when it comes to winning exclusive or retained assignments?
Yeah. So here's what most recruiters do. They go to job boards or they go to company websites and they see that organizations are hiring. They reach out to these organizations. The attitude is for these recruiters to say, well, they're definitely hiring. So if I reach out and say, look, I might have some candidates. From the hiring manager's point of view, they go, well, I've got nothing to lose. And from the recruiter, it's like, I get an opportunity. I can spin that roulette wheel yet again, and maybe, just maybe. But that's what's called the hiring manager that's buying right now. So they're in the market right now. The chance of you getting that on the retained or exclusive basis are pretty slim, because you've got there too late. If it's on the job boards, and obviously you weren't the first recruiter, you're not going to be the first recruiter that's reached out to them. You've really got there too late. And then there's the future hiring manager. So they're going to hire, but they're not hiring right now. Now, the now buyers is a smaller market as well. It's hiring managers that are hiring right now. The future hiring manager that's going to hire next month, 2 months, next quarter, 2 quarters from now, whenever it is, that's a much bigger market. So you targeting the future hiring manager means that you get in there, most importantly, before your competitors. You're getting to know the hiring manager and what the requirements are and the implications of getting it wrong before they actually pull the trigger on it. Added to which, your chances of getting this on a retained basis or exclusive basis substantially increases. It's difficult for a hiring manager, for you to talk to a hiring manager that's already given this job to 4 of your competitors, for you to say, can I have this exclusive on the retained? Because they're thinking, well, it's too late. I've given it to 4 or 5 of the other guys already. I can't take it away from them. They've started working on it. Why would I do that when I've got 4 or 5 guys actually? You've got there too late, and that's I think one of the misunderstandings for a lot of recruiters. They think I'll reach out to somebody who's hiring right now and ask for this on a retained or exclusive basis. It's not impossible, but it's pretty difficult to get business like that, isn't it, Drew?
Yeah, 100%. I think that, and that's the biggest shift. I think there's a lot of people that talk about retainers, or people that train on retainers. And I think one thing that I think a lot of people are missing is that if you're going to shift from contingency to exclusive or retained, right, your business development also needs to shift. You can't be going after the now buyers, asking the same type of questions like who's hiring, have you got any vacancies, or here's some candidates, because realistically, those people are being targeted by every other contingency recruiter, right? We want to go for the future buyers, the ones who aren't hiring right now, but will be hiring in the future. Build relationships with them today, so when they are ready to hire, you are the first person and only person they think of. That's how you get more exclusive and more retained assignments.
Yeah.
Cool. Is there anything to add before we wrap up?
Yeah, just very quickly, it's a couple of things, something that I read quite recently, and it was something like this: if you are not changing, you are choosing. And what I mean by that, if you're not changing the way that you're communicating with your clients, and you're complaining about working on a contingent basis, and most of the roles you don't work on, you have to acknowledge, you have to take responsibility and go, well, actually, if I'm not changing, I'm actually choosing to work this way, because it is a conscious choice that you make. Now, I get you could counter that and say, well, I don't know how to, and I totally get that. And most recruiters don't know how to. But you could then do something about it and discover, how do I sell retained or exclusive basis? What is it I need to communicate to the hiring manager? And look, reach out to us. We'll send you some free videos. Drew will give you our website, but we're more than happy to send you out some free training videos for you to discover what you need to change. But you have to acknowledge that if you're not changing the situation that you're in right now, and most of the job orders you're working on, you're not filling, if you're not changing, you're then choosing to work that way. You can't blame the market, the clients, the candidates, anything else. You have to take responsibility and go, actually, I'm choosing to do it this way. That's harsh, but it is the absolute truth.
Awesome. Thanks a lot, Terry. Again, you're listening to the Make More Placements podcast. Remember to like, subscribe, share this with any of your colleagues who also work in recruitment and could benefit from this episode. We will speak with you again very, very soon. Until then, take care, take action, and be relentless.
Cheers, folks. Thanks, Drew.